Not bad for an indie horror flick this year by Neon and Oz Perkins, but is that really saying much?
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I'm not even supposed to be here today! Oh, fuck you!
Come on, you want me to drive? You're supposed to be suicidal. Remember,
I'll
anybody to drive. Get in the car.
Fuck me in the ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for the 2024 horror film by Oz Perkins, Longlegs. What is the plot of Longlegs? FBI agent Lee Harker is this gifted new recruit assigned to this unsolved case of a serial killer. As the case task completely turns, unearthing evidence of the alcohol, Harker even discovers his personal connection to the merciless killer and now has to race against time towards him before he claims the lives of another innocent family. Yeah, so, when it came to the film being made, Longlegs got announced in November 2022, and Osgood Perkins would be the writer and director of the movie. For making the movie, he drew inspiration from several sources, like the plot device of the evil dolls that caused followers to murder the families was inspired by the killings from Jobin and Ramsey. And Perkins elaborated that the murder had took place approaching Christmas, and present the parents that got for Jobin was this replica doll of herself, wearing one of the pageant dresses. In a cardboard box and 50 feet from where she got killed, he thought he'd catalog it away. Then in February 2023, Micah Monroe and Nic Cage came on board to star in the film, and Cage also produced the film under the Saturn Films banner he's the head of. Then in March, Lisa Witt and Blair Underwood also joined the cast. So, after Longlegs was completed and finally able to be released, Longlegs would go on to be released in the United States by the indie company Neon on July 12, 2024, about 2.5, almost soon to be 2 months ago or a month ago. When it got released, surprisingly, this movie actually made quite a profit of $101 million worldwide and became Neon's highest grossing film to date domestically and the highest grossing independent film of 2024, and also received critical acclaim. But as for my reaction though, so I saw the trailer for this before Maxine last month. I was on it. So then I finally saw the film. Finally got around to watching the film last night. It was just That's what I thought of the film. I wouldn't say it was terrible per se, but I don't think it's great like people are really calling it. It was not a masterpiece at all because there's times the movie does get a little boring. What I can agree on though, Nic Cage was easily the best part of the film. I thought Nic Cage's performance was really terrifying as hell in this film, was very convincing of actually being that his character was definitely a serial killer. The makeup was terrific. I thought, Nic Cage is of the whole cast, Nic Cage looks like he's having the most fun of all of them. To be fair. It's definitely the best part of the film. There was, the cinematography also I thought was gorgeous. Nic Cage's performance is great. Right here, the sound design's great. The concept interesting, but it was a little bit kind of wasted in the end, though. And the opening of this movie did have me hooked for a little while. It definitely feels like the kind of 70s and 80s horror quality ratio right there. The opening scene does feel like 70s ratio for certain films. It kind of feels like those films. But sadly, the plot and main twists of the movie, that stuff just really just kind of dumbs down the movie. And the movie was definitely mismarketed. at first it looks like it's going to be a serial killer movie, and it's not that. And it wasn't really even that scary. It just feels more like a supernatural thriller. Maybe some people would find it scary, disturbing, but me, it was neither. The main idea of the movie just gets revealed a little early on. The end reveal, it was And it just lacks the tension too. You don't feel stakes, you don't feel urgency, any tension in the scenes, when they could have actually tension in the movie. The filmmaking is pretty pristine though. You could definitely feel a distinct style that definitely would make people uneasy throughout. It does this good job of building intrigue and mystery. I can definitely agree on that thing. When it comes to more of Nic Cage's performance, like, yeah, he's the best part of the movie. He's creepy, he's unnerving, he's definitely mesmerizing to watch in this whole movie, and definitely the movie's strongest factor. And the best thing to come out of the film. Right there, like, no, hell, even he felt like a better Joker than Jared Leto did. And Jared Leto's Suicide Squad did. He felt like a much better Joker. The plot, it's alright. Like, more of the plot, like, the plot's just nothing special, and it makes the movie a bit of a letdown. And the build-up did not pay off. And when you're talking about, like, when they have shows like Mindhunter, like, the plot just didn't feel that great for me at all. It just didn't really work for me. I don't think it was really praiseworthy. It's not much of a story to tell. And the movie wants you to make the main character look like a genius, but she has really nothing to show her genius. In fact, she just almost has the same facial expression in every one of her scenes. And she just honestly looks like a more boring protagonist. I didn't really care much about her. There wasn't really a reason to care much about her. She didn't really do anything that memorable. And neither did the other cops in this movie do. How does this movie start, though? Well, the opening scene is great because it definitely looks like the kind of 70s picture quality you'd find in that era. We start off in 1974 Oregon, where you have this young girl with a Polaroid camera. There's a mysterious voice, and this counters this man in pale makeup. That's how your opening scene goes. Then we get to the 1990s when the movie's really set. And you see our main boring character, Lee Harker. It exhibits possible clairvoyance as she gets assigned by Superior William Kidder in this case involving murder-suicides in Oregon. Then each case involves the dad killing his family and himself, and leaves behind this letter with satanic code signed Longlegs. And the handwriting belongs to none of the family members. And Lee discovers that each family has this 9-year-old daughter born on the 14th of any month. And the murders all occur 6 days before or after her birthday itself. And the murders of Code Triangle, the symbol on the calendar, one day is missing, and then she's talking to her mother Ruth on the phone, and then she receives a coded birthday card from Longlegs, and warns that revealing the source of the code is going to lead to her mother's murder. So yeah. It's honestly like whenever Cage doesn't really appear much in the film, but when he is in the movie, every time he's in the film, like, there's great cinematography, right, for the scenes he's in, like, with visual flair and style. There's some elements of horror in his scenes that are interesting, like, despite, yeah, I will say that Cage does not really appear much in the movie, but his character does spread the fear and anxiety felt throughout the entire, that viewers could probably feel throughout the entire film. The role suits him very well. Like, it's nice to see Nic Cage getting roles again, like with Renfield last year, Willy's Wonderland. It's nice to see this guy getting good roles again. Like, technically speaking, this is not the first horror movie he's done right here, but at first when he did try to do horror in the 2000s with that Wicker Man remake, it was definitely awful. And this sadly came right after he did that movie sadly came right after he did the great performance he had in World Trade Center. And then ever since the Wicker Man, like during the late 2000s, he was having a lot of bad roles. Ever since that movie came out. So that movie almost killed his career. There was bad movies like the Ghost Rider movies. Those were bad. He did do National Treasure 2, but after that it was just mediocre flops. There's Next. Next is alright. Next isn't terrible per se, but it's stuff like Knowing, it's stuff like Drive Angry, stuff like Season of the Witch, stuff, yeah, those were not great. Most of them are not great. Occasionally you'd have a hit every once in a while, but there was quite a decline for the 2000s, but it's nice to see this guy's back. Ever since Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse, this guy's finally gotten good roles again. And no, I don't count his brief appearance in The Flash, because he confirmed that none of that stuff was even him at all. And that just makes me, yeah, and that honestly, that just made me more mad at the AI cameos, knowing that Cage didn't even do anything in that film. So that just pissed me off even more. But yeah, the role suits him pretty well, and Makia Monroe, I wouldn't say any of the performance part for her part was really her doing. I think Oz Perkins just didn't really write her character well, and that was kind of a bit of a problem. That's kind of why she just didn't really look all that enthusiastic in her performance. But the film's shooting style was excellent. Like, the wide angle it shows the main characters were in the center of the screen. The source of evil and the driving force of the events were pretty good. But the film's just more of a crime thriller. It shouldn't really be called a horror movie. It's just with some strange murderer. Like, the film is just reminiscent of this. It's kind of like Silence of the Lambs, you know? Silence of the Lambs is supposed to be seen as a horror film, but it feels more like a psychological thriller. Except the difference was Silence of the Lambs was well directed. It was more well written. You actually connected with Jodie Foster in that movie. Hannibal Lecter, like, even had more screen time. So you definitely got to be more terrified of Hannibal Lecter in that film. Anthony Hopkins portrayed him well. And plus, even though technically he didn't have much scenes either, but the real antagonist, Buffalo Bill, was meant to be the real antagonist. You know, like, yeah, but Jodie Foster was a better lead character than this character in that movie was. Right there. The film just has this different kind of atmosphere. In the last part of the film, it changes genres a bit, and it just randomly becomes a different film. Like, Oz Perkins, the director of the movie, he does come up with creative ways with framing the film at moments. It would have been better, more creative if he kept the mannerisms longer in the film. It could have been a bit more unique. Like, another problem though, Oz Perkins when it comes to Oz Perkins as a director, he's not that great as a director. The Black Coat's Daughter, I thought, sucked. I heard most of his other films aren't even that great either. So, not really a big fan of him as a director. He hasn't really directed a lot of good films. Like, yeah, like most of the cast, like the FBI people, the FBI people just, it was not just Monroe's character that looked lifeless. The whole FBI people all look lifeless in this film. Like, they don't get much emotion. So it's really hard to really just care about them. Like, the only one that really seems like he has much freedom in the role was Nic Cage, and right there. And the sad thing is, Nic Cage doesn't even appear in the final film. Alright, sorry about that, guys. Back on. So anyway, after our opening sequence, so Lee and Carter get this clue, and there's this doll with this high-energy metal orb inside. So they go to this mental hospital to question the sole survivor of Longlegs' attacks named Carrie, who was visited by someone using Lee's name, and then Carter suspects that Lee's connection to Longlegs, and discovers that Ruth had filed this police report on an intruder that was approaching Lee on her 9th birthday, which kind of goes back to that opening scene of the movie. Carter then encourages Lee to talk to her, and then Ruth directs Lee to childhood belongings and finds the Polaroid of the pale-faced man, and Longlegs is apparently the man who had visited young Lee on her birthday. The Nic Cage character you often see sometimes throughout the movie. So Lee submits the photo, and so Longlegs is pretty much about to get on a bus, but then the police arrive, so he immediately surrenders. And realizing the missing date is that day, Lee then fears an accomplice is going to commit another murder, so when she's interrogating Longlegs in the interrogation room, he claims to serve the man downstairs, and hints that Ruth's involvement for killing herself, and so pretty much... And then Lee gets informed that Carrie has committed suicide, and like, right here, guys, Nick, this is definitely Nic Cage's best scene in the movie right here. Like, easily Nic Cage's best scene in the movie right here. where he pretty much, as soon as he like starts yelling, you do kind of feel a bit of that fear and anxiety in there when he immediately starts crazy yelling in the interrogation room. Like, yeah, I'm glad they cast Nic Cage for this role. Like, it's sad that he didn't get more scenes. Like, honestly, if this movie would have been better, I would have liked it better if the movie was about him instead. Him just playing this crazy guy, committing all these crazy murders. Why couldn't this movie be about... I would have rather this movie had been about him instead. I would probably like the movie better, and... yeah, it just would be a better movie that way. Like, why couldn't we just have the movie be about him? So it was much more... he's a serial killer, but he was much more interesting than Micah Monroe's boring protagonist. The only character in the movie that really seems like he's having fun in the role. Like, there's nothing wrong with having supernatural elements, but movies like not willing to go for... if you're not willing to go for build-up, then what's really the point of doing it? You have a supernatural verse character in the main cast, like, right there, but it just wants to accept it for, like, that's how it is for no reason at all. And it makes it become less of a horror movie. If you're doing something like where the devil possessing people and making them do unspeakable acts, that does get kind of revealed early in the movie, but how you handle that is just puzzling and just makes no sense. If the devil could just possess anyone, why are the main characters needed to facilitate it? The FBI seems unable to fight the devil as his adversary and determine what really is going on. Like, but yeah, like, the thing is, you got a right kind of horror movie there. You got the style of retro 80s or 70s horror feel. You got effects that look like they're that kind of era. Right there, like, you had a potentially great horror movie in your hands. If you were about Nic Cage's crazy, mentally unstable serial killer character, if you were about that instead, you would have had a terrific horror movie right here. This would have been great. Right there, I would have liked it better. I'm not saying the movie's terrible, I just didn't think it was that good. Right there, like, this had potential to be great, and this had potential to be pretty terrifying. The effects do suit the film, they work well. Like, they do look a little cheesy, much like a lot of the older Nic Cage films, but the role does suit them very well. Like, I like the idea surrounding it, the FBI agent that has to search for clues, and the creepy things that happen when she's around the serial killer. It does feel 80s in terms of horror, like, it feels relevant to the era. And the concept is interesting, it serves like not only horror, but this gripping and intense mystery. But the story and the scary elements that come in naturally, like where you have, like, here's times this works. Like, when you have the original Halloween, where Michael the star is only following his victim, and then decides to scare her go into the house. And then, of course, you have It, where you see a clown that has lots of teeth, and nobody knows what he really looks like. The scary elements do gradually build up there. Here, like, the thing is, you just don't do much horror scenes in this whole movie. The scary elements, when they do happen, they just come in, but there's no build-up. Right there. They even start off interesting, though, but then one of the agents goes to the house and gets shot, and we see the remains of his body. That, I will admit, could kind of startle me a little bit. And the Nic Cage scenes are terrifying, I'll definitely give it that, but when there's other parts of the film that try to be terrifying, there's just minimal horror elements, so what's really the point? So anyway, after Agent Brown, so after Longlegs pretty much kills himself, and Agent Brown then drives Lee to her mother's home, and Lee witnesses Ruth Murray Browning with a shotgun. And then Ruth destroys a doll that's resembling the young Lee, and causing Lee to lose consciousness. And Lee sees that Ruth has been Longlegs' accomplice since Lee's childhood. And then Longlegs forced Ruth to cut between her daughter's death and the bidding, and has to now comply to spare Lee. And then Longlegs lived in the Harker basement, created satanic dolls that Ruth, that posed as a nun, was delivering to, like, the families, and caused them to kill each other. And the Lee's doll blocked her memories of Longlegs and influenced her with the magic. So, like, yeah, Perkins finally could have made a great horror film, but he just made odd choices that just don't pay off. Like, you have the serial killer plot. Sadly, that gets wasted with Micah Monroe just playing a bored protagonist. Right there. And then a confident FBI agent with a troubled past. I thought Jodie Foster did that role better in Silence of the Lambs. And the clues and ciphers then pile up. Then the suspect, like Nic Cage, is identified, who I wish the movie was about instead of this lady instead. Would have rather a movie about his character more. Then Perkins pivots into supernatural satanic themes and convoluted plot lines, like just trying to figure out what the plot of this was even supposed to be about. It's like, if there was even terror, I missed out on that because I almost kind of dozed off lots of times. Because this movie just feels convoluted, and Perkins adds too many layers, and Perkins' plot device for explaining the satanic evil in the victim families' homes, like, that's just a plain silly explanation. There, and it just, yeah, doesn't know what this film wants to be. Want to be a drama? Does this want to be a thriller? Does this want to be a horror? Does this want to suddenly become a sci-fi with the dolls now? And with the supernatural context, like, that didn't really work either. And you have, like, there's other concepts you use. You use childhood trauma as well, repression, and black magic to explain characters' choices. When a protagonist, and you can't tell if the protagonist acting freely or where she's spellbound because she barely shows much emotion the whole film. And often this looks like old entire movie, so it's really hard to root for her if she doesn't have much emotion. The black magic aspect of the film is also confusing. There's too much interpretation of Monroe's forced agency on the audience as well. And as for like the other FBI characters as well, like, I didn't care about them either. They're not really believable, and they also look lifeless and bored. Monroe doesn't pull off the role of a rookie FBI investigator well because of her lack of emotion, and Perkins' story wants her to be so convincing and competent FBI agent, but also a vulnerable, traumatized victim of abuse. It's hard to figure that out. There's difficulty in balance any of that. Right there. Like, it almost just looks like Monroe just looked so bored most of her scenes, and like she was just waiting to get the fuck out and go home. Like, the trailer, like, yeah, just... And so all the other FBI agents, like, can we be done playing this movie so we can leave and just get our paycheck? That's what they look like the whole film. I didn't buy any of that. Like, yeah. There's bored-looking protagonists in better horror movies, ones that actually show emotion. Sometimes a good horror movie will have a bored-looking character, except even then, during their vulnerable moments, they'll actually show emotion. Like, yeah, and the trailers were also a lie. It made it look like it was going to be a violent, unnerving horror film. It wasn't. It was just barely violent at all. They keep shifting tone fast. There was nothing violent about this movie. Other than, like, a few murders. Right there, so what was really the point? So now we get on with our finale, and our finale doesn't even make any sense. Like, after Lee's passed out, she wakes in a basement, hears a demonic voice on the floor warrior about William's daughter Ruby's 9th birthday party, which had been scheduled for that day, and she was invited to in the beginning of the movie. So Lee goes to save the Carters, and the deaths were going to complete Longlegs' triangle if she didn't. She finds the family all possessed now, and Ruth has now just delivered the doll. Then William kills his wife Anna, and Lee shoots him to protect Ruby. Then Ruth attacks with a dagger, and now she's forced to kill her. Like Lee then finally decides to destroy the doll, but she runs out of ammunition. She tells Ruby they need to leave, and then the movie just ends with her staring at the doll still. Like that. The movie's over. That's pretty much how Longlegs ends. Like, Hobble and his accomplice are dead. The killing spree stopped, I guess. But Lee's now clearly traumatized from the whole events of the story. Is now going to have to live with the fact that she had to kill her own mom, couldn't save her boss's family, and only was able to save his young daughter. And the girl's mental state's just uncleared. Her family's dead. The devil's probably because there's explanations of the devil everywhere in this movie. You don't tell if the devil's done with Lee. And Lee now just doesn't look like she wants to leave the house. Like, she's now come under the demonic forces that drove Cobble, and it's going to use the position to follow in his footsteps. Yeah, Longlegs' character's name's Cobble, guys. Like, Cobble's clearly fine with how everything turned out. Right there. So, that's just the end. I guess Lee's just now possessed by the satanic doll. In a way. So she's fucked. Ending just makes no sense. On the story, I'm freezing for a little bit because I don't know what the hell this really means. What was like the point this whole story was trying to tell? There wasn't much of a story here. It just did a mediocre job. Was it a terrible movie? No, I wouldn't say it's a terrible movie. It's just not really a movie that's really worth all the gossip people are giving it. It's tolerable compared to worse horror movies I've seen this year. It's more tolerable than Diarrhea Swim. It's more tolerable than Imaginary. It's more tolerable than 12-year-old Saw ripoff Abigail. It's better than Alien, Romulus, the fan service greatest hits movie. It's obviously better than Winnie the Pooh shit that's running too, or Mickey Mouse Mousetrap. All worst fucking horror movies this year. Like, this has just been a crap fucking year for horror films. Awful. Like, we've had somewhat Lisa Frankenstein, I guess if you do call that a horror movie, and Quiet Place Day One. Those have been the only horror films I've liked this year, and I'm really praying... I really hope the fuck that Terrifier 3 ends up actually being good. I very hope. Because, like... There's only been 2 horror stuff I've really liked this year. I didn't hate this. I just thought it was mediocre. It just wasn't my cup of tea. But I was more mixed on the film. I was more mixed. Lisa Frankenstein and Quiet Place Day 1 were the only horror movies I've liked this year. And that's just sad. Right there. I would mention the bad qualities here, usually at the end of this part, but... This is a more mixed review, so I mentioned the bad qualities and the good qualities all in the review, because it's a mixed review. I didn't hate this movie, I didn't love it, either. It's better than much worse horror movies I've seen this year, but it's not really a movie I'll probably really watch again or really revisit. The filmmaking's neat. The reason why I think it's tolerable is because the filmmaking's neat, the set designs are cool, the 80s, 70s tone is terrific. Nic Cage is pretty scary as hell in this movie with his limited screen time. I think the movie would have been great if the movie was about him instead. Just being him playing this crazy, unstable guy that commits these murders and stuff. Like, yeah, if it was done in the way like Silence of the Lambs did that tone of this movie would have been great. If it was about Nic Cage's terrifying character, I probably would have liked that better. But the plot of the movie just makes no sense, and it goes nowhere. The lead and the cops are all boring, they're stupid, they're useless, and they contribute nothing. The film's just too slow. It's 101 minutes, and it feels like it's 2 hours long because the pacing's sluggish. It's not scary at all. There's no gore. Except the only scary stuff is Nic Cage's scenes, but the rest of the movie's not even scary. So yeah, that's why I think Longlegs I just thought was eh. It's not a movie I'll revisit, but it's not terrible. That's all there is. In the end, just stream Longlegs because it's really just a forgettable flick that isn't really much worth watching. So just stream it. Anyways, guys, that's it for my mixed review of Longlegs. If you're wondering how I'm going to rate Longlegs, here's how I'm going to rate this movie. So overall, if you were expecting some scar masterpiece with this movie, please just stream this movie online instead because it's not even as great as people want you to believe it is. If you're wondering how I'm going to rate Longlegs, I'm going to give Longlegs a 6 out of 10. There we go, guys. That wraps up my review for Longlegs, so I want to know in the comments now down below what you guys thought of Longlegs, whether you liked it, or whether you hated it, or whether you also thought I was more mixed on it like I was. And until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, and don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.